rejuvenation.
And however complicated this may seem, it's 100% natural, easy to use, and it's cheaper than your daily coffee.
It can be done from home and starts working almost immediately. It's the only tested method that allows you to say goodbye to your hearing issues forever. This life-changing solution has passed multiple trials before reaching you today in its final form and holds a 100% efficiency rate with more than 40,000 test subjects. In just 4 minutes, I'll show you how to replicate their results from the comfort of your home.
I will teach you what you need to do to put an end to this whistling or hearing loss and regain your mental clarity, like I personally did in less than a month.
Now, you're probably wondering why you didn't read about this on the front page of your favorite newspaper. Well, authorizing such discoveries is a challenging process. Pharmaceutical companies, research institutes, and medical organizations all have to give their stamp of approval before something as significant as this can hit the news. And Big Pharma, which wants you to rely on their Band-Aid solutions for the rest of your life, is stifling all research so you never become completely healthy, because every cured person means lost revenue. So the medical community told us to wait for more than a year before releasing this amazing treatment. But with 50 million Americans suffering from chronic tinnitus and thousands more becoming deaf every day because of hearing complications, we cannot wait another second. Especially since we know this works even in the most difficult cases, such as people who've had tinnitus for more than 10 years, or who can no longer hear with a hearing aid.
So please pay attention to this life-changing presentation, because I don't know how long I can keep it up. We need to spread the word quickly so that people can get well. But first, here's what you will discover in this video.
1. I'll show you where the dreadful sound of tinnitus really comes from and how it can cause people to lose their memory and hearing. 2. Once you uncover the root cause of your hearing loss and tinnitus, you'll be able to get your hearing back. Stop that crazy noise from attacking your ears, and press the stop button on all of your hearing problems forever. Neurologists admit that this miraculous method, which repairs all the broken circuits in the auditory system, feeds your brain cells and unlocks brain rejuvenation, keeps your brain working at its best, and eliminates the diseases that come with it. This proven method works incredibly well for everybody, men and women, 20 or 80 years old, with hearing problems for the past 7 days or the past 40 years.
And if you're skeptical, believe me when I say that I understand you.
Unlike the doctor who never struggled with hearing problems, or the friends who gossip behind your back about how hard you can be, I know how it feels to not have a moment of peace, to lose your hope and even your mind.
And as a former tinnitus sufferer, I need you to know it's not your fault.
Despite my medical background, tinnitus made me feel worthless and forced me to try things I had no medical reason to believe would work, as you most likely did. But from today on, you can definitely get rid of hearing aids, dangerous chemical-filled medications, and painful ear flushing.
Because I promise you, you will regain your life, you will feel normal again, and you will enjoy a new kind of freedom.
No more headaches, nausea, or dizziness. Only clear sounds. No more feeling irritated, angry, and depressed. Just mental peace. No more late nights spent pleading for a single second of silence. Only good sleep. And that's because you can stop your tinnitus forever, right now. Just like 40,000 beta testers did. At first, their hearing started to clear, day after day. Then they got a much quieter mind, followed by clearer thinking and improved memory. And most importantly, after years of poor sleep and insomnia, all of them can now sleep through the night. Also, after using this treatment, you'll know for sure that you no longer suffer from hidden brain disorders, because the fascinating power of this method lies in repairing the neural connections that have degraded over time and led to tinnitus, by empowering the nerve endings in the brain with substances that it had completely lacked for years. Only the elite have had access to the most skilled doctors in the world who've tested this method and seen amazing results. The method that can cure you right now.
So let's stop that buzzing in your ears that follows you everywhere, and even more important, let's stop the deterioration of your brain.
It's time to free yourself from this nightmare named tinnitus. It's time to enjoy the silence again. It's time to use your clever mind at full capacity and regain your social life.
The wheezing and the daily headaches didn't go away, even with the strongest painkillers. Sometimes I had the feeling that something was running through my ears. The doctor recommended that I watch this video, and thank God I did, and I listened to her. Today I don't hear whistling and I don't have any headaches anymore, all thanks to you.
I suffered from tinnitus for over 10 years. After a while, I began to believe I would never get rid of that whistling in my ear. The nights were horrible because the sounds just never stopped. The day I discovered your method was an eye-opener. Now I can hear, I can relax, and I can sleep. It feels so good to have peace of mind and to be able to enjoy life.
It was bad. I couldn't accept that I would hear that annoying whistling all my life. But I watched your video and it made sense. The whistling, it went away in days, and I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't tested it myself.
So watch this video until the end to finally achieve the peace of mind you deserve and restore your hearing in the next 20 days.
Hello again. My name is Jonathan Miller. I'm a retired medical nutritionist and chemistry professor at a well-known university.
In collaboration with specialists, doctors, and other health enthusiasts, I opened a high-performance laboratory where we made important discoveries that improve the quality of people's lives. But none compares to what I will present to you in the next few minutes.
My story is very embarrassing, especially since I worked in the medical field for so many years, but you must know the truth.
Everything started on a Tuesday while I was giving a chemistry lecture and was suddenly attacked by a paralyzing noise. I first assumed it was the old neon lights in the classroom, or perhaps too much chatter from the students. But it wasn't any of that. Prayers, meditation, and rest failed to make it disappear. And while the sounds of the real world were fading, the buzzing was permanently glued to my ears, no matter where I went.
After 4 days, during which I kept waiting for it to disappear, I started getting really worried. I couldn't sleep or concentrate anymore. I have headaches, felt jittery, and even downright anxious.
One day I asked my wife if she could hear what I was hearing, but she looked at me strangely and told me that I was working too hard.
Then I assumed I had an ear infection or maybe otitis. I took some anti-inflammatories and I waited for it to pass. But after more than 2 weeks of torment, I realized I could not continue like that.
So I asked an ENT colleague to consult me. I was initially afraid to tell him what I had, so he wouldn't think I was crazy and tell my colleagues that I keep hearing imaginary sounds. But I bit the bullet, and I did it anyway, convinced that he'd know how to end this folly.
Unfortunately, this was just the beginning.
Dr. Michael Santi examined my ears and performed audiograms and hearing tests. He concluded by saying, "There's nothing in your ears. It's tinnitus. Nobody is exactly sure what causes it, and I'm unable to offer you any treatments. Drink ginseng tea and try to relax. Maybe you're lucky and it goes away on its own."
Luck? Are we talking about luck now?
As for tea, from my medical experience with teas, I knew that even if I drank a ton of it, the effect would be minimal at best. I was so angry. The only thing the doctor could tell me was, maybe you get lucky and it goes away on its own.
Yet inside my brain, at that very moment, something was dead wrong.
What about my hearing loss? I feel the sounds of the real world are fading away. Please help me, I said. Michael handed me a prescription for some pills to help with the stress and advised me to rest more.
It was clear he wanted me to stop asking questions so that he was incapable of answering, and they would have only embarrassed us both.
So I visited 2 additional doctors. After more appointments and tests, they all told me the same thing. I had to learn to live with tinnitus because I would have it for the rest of my life. Our medical science is so advanced, yet we can't find a cause for these crazy noises in the ears? Sadly, everyone just shrugged their shoulders.
I started taking the anti-stress pills recommended by Michael, and I thought, maybe I should learn to live like this, and with a little bit of luck and time, this too shall pass. Well, what was about to happen was the exact opposite.
In just a few weeks, it got to the point where I would hear 3 simultaneous metallic sounds. One that was buzzing, one that was hissing, and a third that was clicking. And there were also disturbing sensations of blood roaring through my ears and veins. My nerves were so burned out and my hearing so poor that I once yelled at my 6-year-old daughter, Francine, to turn off the TV, even though she was right next to me and the TV was off.
The most difficult moment was when I started to realize that my mind was deteriorating. Day by day, my memory began to slip.
One day, I even forgot what I was doing in my laboratory. My colleagues started to be concerned and recommended that I go home and get rest. And don't imagine that during all this time I did nothing. On the contrary, I tried every remedy I could find. Teas, meditation, acupuncture, white noise therapy, antidepressants. I even put garlic in my ears, and in hindsight, I don't recommend it.
Seeing that nothing works, I became so stressed and scared of everything that was happening to me, I was ashamed and worried that my family and friends might think that I was crazy.
That one day, when the sounds were at their loudest and the blood was pumping through my veins, when I was angry, lonely in the room, and hopeless, I started to scream as loud as I could to cover the sound in my ear. And I screamed so loudly that I fell to my knees and started to cry. Terrified, my wife and daughter entered the room. Francine started crying, so my wife picked her up and told me, "Either you do something and stop acting crazy, or I'll take the girl and leave the house. You shouldn't frighten us like that," she said.
And she was right. I apologized immediately, and I took them into my arms, and I could feel Francine shaking, and I felt so bad.
Looking back now, it was inhuman to act like that, but you've never seen your craziest side until you've got a 24/7 buzzing sound glued to your ears. I was desperate and furious, angry at myself for not being able to find anything with all my medical knowledge. Deep down, I told myself, I'm done with this. I have to find a solution. I can't continue like this. I took a deep breath.
I asked God to help me, and I began to analyze the options I had.
1, I could keep trusting the medical system, hoping that somehow a breakthrough for tinnitus was around the corner. although the doctors had already told me they had no idea what was causing my tinnitus. Or I could choose to fight and seek out the root cause of my disease and beat it like a real man, husband, and father.
This was a long shot, but I knew deep down it was possible and that it was my only choice. So I started searching for more scientific methods that could cure tinnitus.
Most researchers said that tinnitus is caused by being around loud noises for a long time, but that wasn't my case. I work in a relatively quiet wing of the university and live in a nice, leafy neighborhood that's usually calm and peaceful.
I also learned that medication cannot cure tinnitus, which is exactly what the doctors told me.
And counseling was suggested as an alternative method that was supposed to help me learn to live with tinnitus and make it part of my life.
Whoever wrote this surely did not have tinnitus to understand how it feels.
Other studies showed that tinnitus was not caused by an ear infection, a bacterial disease, or anything else like that. But no one knew what caused it, which is why most treatments are simply not enough.
And then I finally found something. It was the first seed of truth in my entire healing process.
And everything happened right here in Texas 10 years ago. Take a look at this article. Scientists at the University of Texas proved that tinnitus can be cured in rats by stimulating the brain with certain substances that renew and restore the entire auditory system to work perfectly again.
But what are these substances and how do they get to the brain?
I immediately got on the phone and called the University of Texas to get more details about their discovery. But they told me in a dry way that they couldn't give me such details, and they asked me to stop being so insistent.
It seemed very suspicious to me, so I had the bright idea of calling the best neurologist I know, and that I trusted, Dr. James Rashi.
He's my college friend and an extremely capable neurologist who spent many years in the United Kingdom after marrying a lovely English woman. He's written many studies and books locally and has done medical research in the neurological field for more than 15 years. His specialty is neurorehabilitation.
And after I told him about my tinnitus, hearing loss, and memory problem, James told me that he too had been obsessed with finding out the neurological explanation for sensory loss.
He said that he'd studied the work of Dr. Cheng Xu, a Chinese doctor who spent his last 10 years in the UK and who invented the in vivo confocal laser microscope. In vivo confocal laser microscope was used for the first time in ophthalmology because the high-resolution imaging has established a new understanding of the functions of the ocular surface system.
But the technique was also used by Dr. Xu to provide reliable early biomarkers for neurodegenerative changes, and this allowed him to run one of the most detailed studies on the brain, hearing loss, and tinnitus ever.
He presented the case of a 71-year-old man who agreed to have his auditory nerve cut just to get rid of tinnitus. But unfortunately, tinnitus continued after the surgery. It clearly demonstrated tinnitus is not a simple ear disease. It starts with the ears, but it's something much deeper than that. During this surgery, Dr. Xu made another previously unknown, shocking discovery. Using his confocal laser microscope in vivo, he carefully watched the inner ear hair cells and found that they have a root extension that lets them talk directly to the brain and control how sensitive they are to sound vibrations. This demonstrated that hearing loss and tinnitus are actually rooted in the brain.
And then I asked, where in the brain? Can the brain prevent hearing loss and tinnitus at the same time?
But neither James nor I could answer this question exactly. We both felt we were close to finding out the truth, yet something important was missing. I asked James if we could maybe go visit Dr. Xu, but he told me that sadly he passed away in 2018. Still, his widow might still have a few of his records.
It was a long shot, but I had already come this far, and I could feel my hearing loss and memory getting progressively worse by the day.
So I asked James if he could come with me to deepen Dr. Xu's findings and maybe discover a solution. He said yes right away, and that he would meet me at the airport in the UK. In the meantime, he had to find the doctor's address and, if possible, his wife's phone number. I left the girl and the wife with a hired nanny for the period of my absence and left, promising them that their father would find a cure.
As soon as I got off the plane, I went with James straight to Dr. Xu's house. We had no time to waste.
When I knocked on the door of Dr. Xu's house, an elderly woman appeared. She was initially reluctant to give out any information, but then she recognized James. "My husband followed your career closely, young man. He said you have great potential, but you're just going about it the wrong way." James told her that's why we were there, to ensure that her late husband's legacy would be continued. She welcomed us inside and showed us all his records. What we found in them was nothing short of a medical breakthrough.
Dr. Xu had basically proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that tinnitus was a disease of the entire auditory system, not just an ear disease, and everything was explained very clearly in his journal.
You see, the insides of our ears are coated in tiny little hairs that are attached to special nerve endpoints called cochlear cells. These cells transform the sound vibrations we pick up into electrical signals that go straight to the brain, where our auditory cortex decodes them. When our brains don't get enough of certain nutrients, these signals start to get messed up. Instead of sending clear sounds, they begin to break them down into their most basic parts. That's why people hear all sorts of noises, ranging from buzzing and ringing, like in my case, to to humming or even crackling noises for some tinnitus sufferers. To make matters worse, if left untreated, tinnitus will spread to the entire nervous system. It can lead to hearing loss as the cells continue to die out as a result of the stress they're being put under.
And that's because when you have tinnitus, it feels like you are trapped in a never-ending hellscape, which naturally causes you great distress. You would do anything to make that sound stop.
And this turns into a negative feedback loop. Your cochlear cells cannot pick up sound accurately, which turns into scrambled noise inside your brain, which then damages the brain through constant stress, making everything worse. To prove his point, Dr. Shu published studies linking hearing loss to diseases such as Alzheimer's or dementia. Because people with hearing difficulties end up not using their auditory cortex properly, this part of the brain degrades over time, causing issues with memory retention and severe headaches. In fact, people with hearing loss are estimated to be up to 5 times more likely to develop potentially life-threatening diseases like Alzheimer's or dementia.
Hearing this made my legs shiver. This condition could put an end to my brain.
Fortunately, James found a glimmer of hope in Dr. Shu's writing. He said that the hair cells in the inner ear don't usually have the ability to grow back on their own, but that certain substances can make new cells grow from existing ones. These are called support cells in medical terms. After many years of hard work, surgeries on the brain, confocal laser microscope observations, and analysis of medicinal plants, Dr. Shu wrote down a protocol for curing hearing loss and tinnitus, precisely in the hope that someone of good faith will find it and use it to help all those who are suffering. We had it right in front of our eyes, written in black and white.
I didn't understand why he didn't make this discovery public, but I was going to find out right away, and it wasn't going to be anything pleasant.
In his journal, Dr. Shu wrote that he had also developed tinnitus, which he said was caused by the many years he spent working for the poor in China while under a lot of stress. But once he figured out a formula to treat the condition, his tinnitus disappeared in exactly 7 days. He also noticed changes in his ability to remember things and do hard tasks. He thinks that his IQ probably went up by 10 to 15% during this time. Dr. Shu lived to the ripe old age of 102, so his brain was clearly fortified against age-related diseases such as dementia or Alzheimer's. Then, at the end of the journal, I found out something even more shocking. When Dr. Shu tried to get his research published in international journals, the Chinese Communist government classified his work as state secret and took away all of his research materials. That's why he fled to the UK with his wife, and that's the reason why he started writing everything in this journal.
I couldn't believe my ears. However, the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I mean, we all saw how they dealt with the health crisis that hit all of us over the last few years.
Locking down entire cities, welding apartment doors shut, trapping people in IKEAs, and mysteriously disappearing scientists who disagree. So going after someone that could torpedo their drug cartel made sense. At the same time, Dr. Shu confessed with modesty and dignity that he was not afraid for his life. He would have been willing to go to prison or die so that people would find out the truth, but he was afraid for his wife, especially since he promised her they would be fine. While reading all these painful things, Dr. Shu's wife started crying.
I now understand why the University of Texas didn't want to show me any studies. The same thing probably happened. Big Pharma stepped in so that they wouldn't lose their huge profits.
And we were more determined than ever to make a change. These injustices could no longer continue, especially when research shows that 1 in 10 Americans suffered from tinnitus symptoms in the last year alone. And many of them are at risk of developing hearing loss, dementia, or even worse conditions if they're not treated.
I carefully read each step of Dr. Shu's protocol, which claimed to not only reverse tinnitus and hearing loss through the generation of new cochlear supporting cells, but also have the ability to protect the brain from memory disorders and age-related illness.
After we made sure that we understood the entire healing process and that we correctly listed all the substances that our brain and auditory system needed, and after we double-checked the amounts of each ingredient in the recipe, Dr. James decided to come with me to my lab in the United States to make and test Dr. Shu's formula. I thanked Dr. Shu's wife and promised her that we would make her husband's discoveries known to the whole world.
Now I want you to pay attention because what I'm about to tell you comes directly from Dr. Shu's protocol. It's top secret information that no one else has access to. So here's a quick explanation of everything that went into the formula.
But keep in mind, it's only 100% effective when all of the ingredients are combined in these exact same ratios to achieve the best possible results against hearing loss, tinnitus, and brain disorders. Without adequate preparation, the whole ritual is pretty much worthless. That's why a lot of supplements don't have any effect.
And this is something that no one will tell you.
Because as we saw in Dr. Shu's journal, Big Pharma's interest is to keep us on the hamster wheel, not solve your problems. Through his studies of the brain, Dr. Shu found that all cases of tinnitus and hearing loss have one thing in common. The nerve cells are always swollen or even dead. As you get older, your brain's nerves and tissues get inflamed, which causes a lack of essential nutrients and leads to pressure inside your skull. This causes scrambled signals, which lead to hearing loss, brain fog, headaches, memory loss, and ringing in the ears.
Dr. Shu knew that the best ingredient to completely calm down the nervous system
Is eleuthero, a small woody shrub that has been used in Chinese medicine for 2,000 years. When combined with ginseng, which is already very well known for the fight against tinnitus, it basically soothes your nervous system, allowing your auditory cortex to process sounds naturally and stress-free. It also prevents earwax from forming, which is a big boost for those suffering from hearing loss. Then, astragalus is another Chinese anti-tinnitus herbal treatment that has been shown to strengthen your eardrums and enable the production of supporting cochlear cells, which are responsible for picking up audio signals from your surroundings, a must for people with damaged hearing. Maca was added to the list of superfoods because it has a real effect on the brain. It helps the nervous system recover by getting rid of the constant stress we all deal with. And Dr. Shu's research shows that it can improve memory and learning by up to 15%. It also reduces anxiety and facilitates new support cell production, essential for a complete restoration of the entire auditory system. Guarana is commonly touted for its ability to reduce fatigue, boost energy, and aid learning and memory. It gets oxygen to your ears and gets rid of dangerous free radicals that stop your inner ear from processing sound correctly. Gymnema is one of the formula's best-kept secrets. This is because it has anti-inflammatory and immune-stimulating properties that not only get rid of inflammation, but also prevent it from happening again, making sure that tinnitus won't come back. Next, African mango. Numerous studies have attested to the beneficial effects of African mango on the human body, including improved circulation and keeping your heart ticking like a finely tuned Swiss watch. This is vital for good hearing, since many people with tinnitus will complain about being able to hear their own heart or pulse even while at rest. This ingredient solves the problem by addressing it at its root and granting you the silence that you crave so much. Coleus is an important ingredient that helps cells grow back and stay young. It does this by directly boosting cellular energy and stopping cell death in the body, which is mostly caused by inflammation in the brain. And for maximum benefits, it had to be mixed with green tea, GABA, and Vitis vinifera. Vitis vinifera is a unique woody vine, rich in nutrients and minerals. These three plants are critical for reversing neurodegeneration and repairing years of brain damage. This powerful combination acts like a super steroid for your brain, helping it grow and develop, feeding your brain cells, creating the space they need to repair themselves, and building new cochlear support cells. You'll notice you're thinking faster, better, and more clearly in just a few days.
Now, Dr. Shu's formula is a very complex one, with many more ingredients than those mentioned. It has rare plants that are hard to get and that some doctors have never even heard of.
But after analyzing the recipe several times, together with James and another 3 doctors from the university and laboratory, we decided that it is necessary to select only the purest of ingredients, mix them in the exact order and with the same method that the doctor used. Use exact amounts of each ingredient so that the final mixture is as effective as possible. As you can imagine, it took another 2 months until we even got a prototype we could test out.
To be honest with you, it was tough as hell. So many farmers use pesticides these days. It took many days and nights to find the ones that were honest and transparent and could supply us with what we needed. But in the end, it was all worth it.
I had in my hands the proven formula that would end my hearing issues and basically get my life back to what it was before my problems began. I couldn't wait to try it. Anyway, I would never give out something that I wasn't 100% certain worked, so of course I became my very own test subject. We, like Dr. Shu, kept the mixture in liquid form for 3 reasons. First, because this way the ingredients get absorbed much easier into your body, feeding the brain and the entire auditory system with the substances they were deprived of for years, in record time. Second, I knew from personal experience that after swallowing a fistful of pills for what seemed like an eternity, the last thing I'd want to do was swallow something in pill form. And third, because we wanted to keep the formula intact to ensure that we would have the same effect that Dr. Shu himself had in his tinnitus battle.
So on my first day of treatment, I put a couple of drops of oil into my water and prayed to God that it would at least alleviate some of my symptoms.
I didn't feel a thing, but I had faith. The second day, something shifted. I could feel the anxiety starting to wash away, and in its place came a calm serenity that gave me hope. By day 4, the ringing in my ears went from being very painful to being bearable.
Now, in his writings, Dr. Shu claims that the formula works in 4 stages.
Stage 1.